Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. It is 6:31 p.m. This is notice is hereby given that this is a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Sandy Oaks, Texas, being held today. Catherine, can you mute, please?
Mute myself?
No. Being held today, Thursday, August 13, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. by telephonic video conference for the purpose of considering the following agenda items. All agenda items are subject to action. In accordance with the order of the Office of the Governor issued March 16, 2020, the City Council of the City of Sandy Oaks, Texas will conduct a telephonic video meeting in order to advance the public health goal of limiting face-to-face meetings, also called social distancing, to slow the spread of the coronavirus, COVID-19. There will be no in-person public access to the meeting. A recording of the telephonic meeting will be made and will be available to the public in accordance with the Texas Public Information Act upon written request. Ms. Yelton, can we get a quorum call, please?
Yes, Alderman Rapino.
Here.
Alderman Fillinger.
Here.
Alderman Tremblay. Unmute yourself, please.
Sorry, here.
Thank you. Alderman Walker. Alderman Walker. Oh, there's Alderman. Oh, she was there. She was gone. Alderman
Here.
Walker. There you go. And then Alderman Yelton.
Here.
Thank you. You do have a quorum. And we do also have City Attorney Cassandra Ortiz online with us.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will stand here in City Hall and do Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 3, citizens to be heard. Persons wishing to speak may sign up with the city clerk at least 2 hours in advance of the meeting by emailing cityclerk@cityofsandyoaks.com or calling 210-607-0834. Please note that the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the City Council from responding, commenting, or discussing items or topics during this portion of the meeting that are not included on the agenda. The City Council appreciates hearing from the citizens, and your thoughts and questions are valued. However, civility and a sense of decorum will be strictly followed. All speakers must address their comments to City Council. Speakers shall refrain from public criticism of members of City Council that are prohibited by law. This item will be open for up to 30 minutes with 3 minutes to each speaker. One person may speak on behalf of a group. Up to 3 persons may register on behalf of the group in order for the spokesperson to be allotted up to 9 minutes to speak. If there are more than 10 speakers, each will be given 2 minutes or 6 minutes for a group spokesperson. And we do have someone who has signed up. And we have Gabe Lara. And I will turn the floor over to Mr. Lara. Welcome.
Hello, Mayor Bell and City Councilman. Thank you for inviting me to your meeting. I am the Republican candidate for County Commissioner Precinct 1. Born and raised on the South Side, Harlandale graduate, St. Philip's graduate, and currently at Texas A&M. I traveled the streets of Bexar County and San Antonio for 34 years with the City of San Antonio Fire Department. Back in the 80s, I even made calls with Sandy Oaks, Somerset, Adair, Jarrett, and others. And then my daughter steps in. But it'd be an honor to serve you. I think we need a full-time county commissioner. Precinct 1 being the largest of the 4 precincts. Very diverse. We have areas in the south that couldn't even get their roads paved. It took media and Cops Metro, and it shouldn't take that. We got the neighborhoods to the west that have their roads paved. Thelma's still waiting for their community center. Again, it's time for a full-time commissioner. I traveled the streets for 34 years. I can do it again for 4, and that's all I'm asking for is 4 years. I've already been blessed with almost a 40-year career of saving lives. So again, I'm humbled that you allowed me to speak, and I would be honored to have your support on November 3rd. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Lara. Appreciate you joining us this evening. And you're welcome to stay and listen to the rest of our conversations if you choose. But
I'll be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move to item number 7, just to save the time of some individuals here. Item 7A is presentation of monthly report by Marshall Lopez with possible discussion and/or action. Marshall Lopez, microphone, please.
Is there anybody speaking?
Yep. Marshall, it's a little hard to hear you. Can you speak a little louder?
So for the month of July, we had 9 arrests, ranging from resisting arrest, SAPD warrants.
We're not getting the marshal's audio.
Haven't heard anything.
Is your microphone on?
Use my computer.
Everybody hear me now?
Can anyone hear the
Much
marshal?
better.
Okay.
Much
I can
better.
hear, I can hear him now, yeah.
Okay, so I do
Start over.
apologize, I guess, for having a communication problem. So to restart, for the month of July, we had 9 arrests. And so consisting of resisting arrest, SAPD warrants, unauthorized use of a motor vehicle, evading arrest and detention, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and assault bodily felony house. So they consisted within the month. So, and then for and that assaults, we had 1 burglary of a habitation, and civil matters were about consistent with the 6 reports taken within the month for civil matters as well. And then we had 2 vehicles, 2 abandoned vehicles that were towed out of the city. Also, commercial vehicle warnings were issued was a 1. Junk vehicle warnings was 1, and 3, and I believe, no, that was 3. And so 2 disturbances within the month of July. And then we had 8 EMS assists, 2 information reports, 2 damaged property reports, 2 suspicion of person reports, and then 2 thefts and 1 authorized use of a motor vehicle.
Unauthorized.
And welfare concern was 1. Does anybody have any questions or concerns?
Yes, no? Okay. If there's no questions, then hold on. Lost my screen. Come back here. Thank you, Marshall Lopez, for that report and for the work that yourself and Deputy Castillo are doing. It is not going unnoticed. In a good way. Okay. Let me get back over here. Okay, thank you. And you're free to go. Okay, so let's go back up to item number 4, which is the financial and budget report, and Ms. Shelton will present that.
Okay, let me get ready. So our beginning balance as of July 1st, 2020 was $194,967.87. We had checks and payments of $128,074.80, deposits and credits of $39,668.20, leaving us an ending balance as of July 31st, 2020 of $106,561.27.
Okay, if anyone have any questions for Ms. Shelton on that? If not, I'll entertain a motion for accepting this financial report.
Yep, move to accept the financial report as given.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Tremblay to accept the financial report as presented. I see Alderman Fillinger has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I'd second that motion.
Okay. So because we have so many people on the phone or on the Zoom call, we'll do the audible as well as the hand raised, just so that we make sure we capture everybody. So all in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Okay. Yeah, that motion carries. Thank you. Future council member. Consent agenda. All matters listed under consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council of the City of Sandy Oaks and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. And do we have the minutes?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we have 3 items on here. Item A is to approve the June 2020 City Attorney invoice number 1250 from Cassana and Ortiz, not to exceed $5,085.98. Item B is to approve the July 2020 City Attorney invoice number 1252 from Cassana and Ortiz, not to exceed $3,414.30. And I will remove item C. Are there any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Okay, with that, would someone care to make a motion? You raise your hand, then I'll call on you. Alderman Tremblay.
Move to approve the consent agenda items A and B.
Okay. We have a motion by Alderman Tremblay to approve consent agenda items A and B. Mayor Pro Tem Rapino, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I will second that motion.
Okay, so we have a second by Alderman Rapino. Alderman Tremblay and Alderman Rapino, could you lower your hand for just a moment and then we'll do this again. So we'll do an audible of all in favor, say aye, and also raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Okay, and that motion carries. Okay. And in trying to be sensitive to our employees, I will move to item 8A. And this would be a presentation of the monthly report by ACO Maldonado with possible discussion and/or action. Are you on the phone? Okay. I'll turn it over to Mr. Maldonado. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Got you.
There's an echo.
Got you.
I can.
Like,
I think we need to mute you, Mickey.
I turned my volume off.
Oh, okay, that was the echo. Okay, go ahead, Chris.
That's right.
okay, if we're all ready, I'm gonna start with the cases. We'd have a total of 24 cases, 4 still open. We had 3 bite scratches, 6 cruelty and neglect, and 10 stray. 5 enforcement, which is me just going out and enforcing ordinances. Like I said, just 4 remaining open cases for the month of July.
How many TMOs did you do?
Moving into the intakes for TNRs and just stray dogs. We had a total of 14 TNRs for the month of July. Quite a bit from last month, so we're spiking it up a little bit. We had a tremendous spike in animals as well for dogs. We had a total of 11 dogs picked up last month. That doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot. We had to get rid of these dogs. We had to maintain these dogs. We had to board these dogs. So it does come with an expenditure. So any questions for me?
Mayor Pro Tem has his hand up.
Alderman Martino has his hand raised. Please go ahead, sir.
I have no questions. I'm sorry. I thought it was yellow.
Okay, Alderman Tremblay.
Yeah, Chris, on the 4 that you say are open, are those currently being boarded at the veterinarians, or are they boarding here now?
So no, those are cases. Those aren't
Oh, they're open cases.
open cases, correct?
And so where does that go from here? Where do you take that?
It's still
It's an open
ongoing.
case.
So
Do we have any in custody?
are you asking if we have any in custody?
No, when you, I'm referring to the 4 you say are open cases. Can you elaborate on that? What does that mean? What's the future hold? Where do you go from here? It's
So
an open
it's just
case.
depending. It's just depending case by case. So whether I have to go and talk to that owner again and make sure that dog's contained, or
But they're
just
not in
different.
custody.
They're not in custody at all. They were either given a warning, and I'm gonna have a follow up with the owner.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that explains it. So it's an open case. You gave them a warning, and you follow up with them to make sure they've complied.
Right. Like
Gotcha.
if I told them to get rid of some horses or get rid of some certain animal that they're not supposed to have, I recheck, and that's why they remain open until I verify those animals are gone.
Good. Thank you. And I just want to commend you on the numbers. Like you say, you don't 11 whatever doesn't sound like a big number, but you got to take baby steps to tackle this problem. We're not going to
Right.
cure it overnight, but you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, can y'all hear me now?
I still hear a double.
It's not that, it's your volume. It's your speaker. Yeah. Okay, we're back. And I don't believe we need to take any action on this item. Okay, let's get back on track here. Go back to item. Actually, we have guests on the phone, so I'd like to move on to that, which would be item 6E. And we have on the phone with us Lisa Jaster, who is with M&S Engineering, and it looks as if Jared Mott has joined us as well. And what I would like to do is just give a kind of a brief summary of why we're even having this discussion. So after Mr. Fox left us, I had to go through and review invoices that needed to be paid. And in most cases, it was relatively easy as it pertained to M&S Engineering because I had task orders, I had contracts, I had agreements. It was very easy to look at that, compare where we were with the total project and approve those for payment. But there are some outstanding invoices that I think it's probably been since June or July we've been having this discussion. And there were some invoices that were sent to us that I could not locate any task orders. And so I could have approved those for payment and then brought those to council for ratification after the fact, but I prefer not to do that because I think this is a good opportunity to kind of review our process and procedures, make sure everyone is clear on what the expectation is as we're moving through these projects. And so the gist of it is there was an email, there were some items for the municipal complex that is referenced on the invoices, the Sandy Oaks Animal Control Facility, because that is how the bid and the project legally are identified. Again, we've had this discussion in the past where that may be the legal definition, but the true scope of the project is related to municipal infrastructure. And I was given some information from Ms. Jaster on an approval from Mr. Fox back on March 2nd that basically said it was to members of Public Works and members of M&S Engineering. And basically the message says, thanks again for the message. As we spoke on the phone, let's move ahead. Thanks. And M&S Engineering apparently took that as authorization to do whatever they felt they needed to do to support the project. But no task orders were issued, no task orders were approved. And Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, where we're at with this is there's about $20,000 that is sitting here in unpaid invoices. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Lisa?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. I had my computer on mute. Sorry.
Oh,
Yes, I can hear you.
yes, ma'am. It's approximately 20,000. I don't have the number directly in front of me, but yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm looking at, there are 4 invoices listed here that basically it boiled down to there's an additional $20,677.50 worth of work in finalizing the design, bidding the project, and providing construction administration. So each of the council members has this string of emails. They have the copies of the invoices. What I would like is for Lisa or Jared, whichever one is more versed in it, to kind of go over the items that are on these invoices so that we have a clear understanding of what work was actually completed, number one. So I'll turn it over to you.
Jared, would you like to do an overview of the work that you completed for those 4 invoices?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I hear you just fine.
All right, I don't have the individual invoices up, but essentially the invoices were for, I believe the very, the oldest one had a portion of the design phase services on it, finishing up plans. And then we went into bid phase per what my understanding of talking with Mr. Fox, the city wanted to proceed. Those services included providing EJCDC standard documents for bidding and contracting, reviewing and responding to requests for information, attendance at bid opening, evaluating and tabulating the bids, providing a recommendation letter, and essentially assisting the city with the contract construction execution. So the construction phase later on includes the pre-construction meeting, or sorry, the construction meeting, pre-construction meeting for the contractor, and then attending on-site meetings, checking progress, and reviewing progress of the information processing, RFIs and changes, shop drawings and submittals, and payment applications.
And so I'd like to go back to the original bid that we were given. And in there, the signed proposal reads, M&S Engineering will provide the civil and MEP scope, design scope of work described above for an estimated amount of $15,000 plus reimbursable. So for the $15,000, which is a number that we had and we knew and we understood, can you go over what is included in that fee?
The services for the design phase are the civil is broken down into civil and MEP portions. The civil included design of yard piping modifications to serve new structures, coordination with SAW, and site visit to review the survey and provide updates based on the visual observation of work. And the MEP design included coordinating with CPS Energy on power requirements and modifications, developing an electrical site plan, developing floor plans if required, providing one-line diagram, load analysis, panel schedules, and providing specifications.
Okay, so the next question is, I'm just curious as to why task orders were not issued related to these additional charges.
One thing, Mayor, is, and council members, is that with regards to this specific proposal, it was of an unknown amount to complete the bidding package, as well as it was for an unknown amount with regards to the construction administration, which is why, in accordance with the MSA, the proposal was written as hourly for those additional services.
Okay, but I would have thought that before work would have commenced over and above the basic work that was done in the initial proposal, that there would have been some discussion on additional costs that would be incurred so that we could bring these before council for approval. And that's really where my question is going.
So from an M&S standpoint, unsure of what requirements the city has with regards to task orders, but for us, the approval to move forward and the proposal stating that it's hourly was clear to us that we had approval and that we were going to charge in accordance with our MSA. So I understand what you're saying with regards to a task order. That was not communicated to us when Mr. Fox said we should continue to move forward.
And so back in January of 2020, we renewed or extended the original agreement that was in place related to the task order process. So I think what's important to make sure everyone understands, at this point, there is no additional billing that we will accept from M&S Engineering that has not been approved beforehand. And that includes, it needs to be submitted on a task order that needs to be discussed before the work is done. So I just want to make sure everyone is very clear going forward. We will abide by the agreement that we signed. But in the meantime, we do need to resolve this issue. And so I would like to open this up. I see Alderman Fillinger has his hand raised. The chair recognizes Alderman Fillinger. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. I've looked at every document, and it appears that Mr. Fox far exceeded his authority when he agreed to move forward without an additional task order. Understanding that M&S cannot predict every dollar and every cent, but we have a $15,000 task order that's turned into $30,000 worth of billing. I'm kind of disappointed in a process that allows the authorized amount to double without any further agreement. Then Mr. Fox had a telephone call and sent an email that said proceed. You know, I've looked at every invoice and believe M&S is correct on their invoicing, but we need to approve the money before it is spent, rather than trying to rectify after the fact. We have an MSA agreement so that we have some idea of what's coming, and if it was a 10%, 20% overrun on the task order, I wouldn't have a problem saying yes, that's reasonable. But it's 100% over the task order. We need a process that this never happens again.
Thank you, Alderman Fillinger, and I would agree. And Lisa, we rely on the experts that we have hired to help us with these processes. So knowing that we're the lay people here and this is not our forte, we selected a city engineer to help us with this process. And I feel that I would admit that we both stumbled. Lou Fox did not, I think he exceeded his authority and did not follow existing requirements that were in place. But I also feel that M&S needs to own up to some of that as well, for not following the agreement that we have in place.
I definitely understand what you're saying, Mayor, and I do know for certain we will, moving forward, ensure that all task orders are filled out and signed prior to conducting any work that needs to be completed for any project moving forward.
Hi, Mayor. This is Jason Jones with M&S Engineering. Can you hear me
Yes, sir.
okay?
I can, thank you.
Hi. I'm a CFO and partner at M&S, and I just wanted to see if I could help clarify a little bit of our position, at least regarding the proposals and the task orders. So from our side, when we provide that proposal, it had fees for the design of the civil and MEP, and then it had a fee for the construction administration, bid and construction administration, which was in an hourly, based on an hourly rate if the city needed and we were instructed to do so. And that proposal was then attached to this task order. So from our side, we do feel like we followed exactly what we were supposed to do with regards to this proposal and task order, which is we provided the design, we completed that, then there was communication with Mr. Fox, not only via conversation, but also via email. That was written authorization, verbal communication, verbal authorization to move forward. So from our standpoint, I hope that you understand that we're doing what we felt like the city was asking us to do and being directed by a representative of the city. So we certainly weren't trying to do anything untoward regarding the city or billing or overbilling by any means. And I don't know how else, other than we learned from this situation that if there's any sort of hourly fee that's going to be associated with with one of your projects, that we make sure we bring it up and there's an exact fee that somehow we're able to provide that. But if we're being approved to do something on an hourly basis, we don't have a fee associated with that to give you. And therefore, at least from our position, we feel like we did what we were asked to do. And I don't know what else we would have done differently, because at the same time, we're doing work every month and providing an invoice. The city knows that we're doing the work. They're accepting the work. And nobody's telling us to stop, and we're sending invoices and nobody's saying anything. And now we feel like there's pushback as to whether we should be getting paid or not, and we don't understand that.
Well, and I appreciate your input there. Here's when, from my perspective, and I'll have the other aldermen chime in as they see fit. Just raise your hand, gentlemen, and CJ, if you'd like to comment. But when I get a quote or a scope of work and it has a price on it, that's what I have to work with. What may be helpful is, again, we don't have the experience. We don't know what is entailed in a project like this. Even if you're just estimating, at least line out what those estimated additional costs may be. Here are some of the additional things that may happen, so that at least from a project standpoint, we have an understanding of what it potentially could cost us. We were blindsided by this. And, for Mr. Fox to just say, yeah, let's go ahead. I don't know what conversation, because apparently that was a phone call that occurred, and then he just sent an email saying, yeah, great talking to you, and yeah, go ahead. I would hope that there was some discussion, something was provided that said, okay, here's what we're doing. We're gonna, we need engineering work done for this many hours. Here's what it's gonna potentially cost based on our conversation. So, because we do have something in place, when you start talking about materiality, you know, granted, this is a big project and I know it's part of the bigger project, but you know, you start hitting an invoice that's got 5 digits in it, that should be raising flags. Somebody needs to be having a conversation. In my mind, what I saw was, yes, go ahead, blank check, go for it. Do what you need to do to make it happen. That cannot happen. We're a very small municipality. We cannot absorb unexpected expenses like that. If we know it's coming, then we certainly can address it and maybe sit and decide if that's really where we need to go. But those type of expectations should have been set very, very early on. The 15,000 plus, and then whatever that plus could potentially be. And again, that's why we rely on your firm to help us with this, because we don't know. That's why we contract with an engineer. It's not that we're questioning whether the payment should be made, because, you know, as Alderman Fillinger stated, the work appears to have been completed. And, you know, if the work has been done, then I think we're obligated to pay it. It puts us in a difficult position. But I see Alderman Tremblay has his hand raised, so I will recognize Alderman Tremblay. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo what you're stating there, Mayor Ball. And I think in the future is when M&S comes forward and does a project for us, and there is an hourly charge associated with any project that an estimated cost be provided. I'm sure M&S has done similar jobs there that could resemble the work that would be done here, and just provide an estimate. And should that estimate be reached, another work order would be submitted for approval so that it could be budgeted. As far as a budget standpoint, yeah, this puts us in a tight spot, because if you're not looking for it, yeah, here we are year end and we're trying to tie up loose ends. And this is just unexpected cost, really surprises we don't need. So yeah, that would be my suggestion as well, is that when there's a project to be completed and there's an hourly cost associated, without just saying that there are hourly costs, we need to estimate possibly what those hourly costs would be for a project similar to that, and include it in the budget up front, what we would budget for that project. And again, once that number is met, a change order comes in for another work order to be submitted. That would be my my input on this.
Thank you, Alderman.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. And we can absolutely do that for you moving forward. That is an easy solution. We can give you an estimated hourly not to exceed rate or something to that matter, and just make sure that we're communicating as we get closer to that number if we're getting close. So that's an easy fix.
And so I do have to ask the question related to this specific project. Are there additional invoices that have not yet been presented to us related to this project that we need to be aware of?
I believe there was one sent at the beginning of August. I'm not sure. Did you happen to? I'm not sure if y'all have seen that one yet or not. I think it's included in this total amount. And then Jared would be able to answer the question as regards to if there's more work to be done under this proposal.
Okay, so when I look at the invoices that are listed here, there's 4 invoices. There's an April 8th, a May 8th, a June 11th, and a July 8th. So I'm not aware of an August invoice.
Okay.
So if you have that information, I think now would be a good time to share what that is, what it was for, and how much it is, how much it's going to cost us.
There is an August invoice. I don't know if they have been sent out because we just completed billing this week. I can look it up and get back to you tomorrow. I do not have it available to me right now.
Okay, so you realize that we are in a predicament this evening because I have postponed our budget amendment for 3 or 4 meetings now in anticipation of getting this right tonight, and I have to get it right tonight. Jason, do you not have access to the invoicing to see if there's something current out there?
I do. I'm trying to look at it. I was driving home from work. I'm sitting in my truck and I'm trying to find it on my phone. So
I am doing the same right
full
now.
disclosure. So,
Yes, I'm also looking it up. It'll take me a minute to get onto the VPN to get on the.
And
I think I can help you out. Ms. Shelton would like to address this. Go ahead, Ms. Shelton.
So the city did receive an email from Mr. Jones earlier this afternoon.
yeah.
There are 5 invoices on there now. The August one is $970. And I do want to mention that I have not received in the mail an invoice from M&S Engineering in probably a couple of months. I'm not sure where the disconnect is between mailing, but I have not received invoices in a while.
And so, Ms. Shelton, on that invoice that you received an email, can you identify what that is representing?
Construction admin is $970.
And Jared, can you explain what construction admin is, please?
Sure. The construction administration is those services done during the construction phase. Essentially, it was, I believe this last month, was looking at the pay application and phone call coordinations, responding to requests for information from the contractor. So that's what that's for.
And do you know what time frame that was occurring?
The invoice for August would have been for services in July.
Okay. And I'm trying to, I was trying to think back when it was that I was informed that y'all would not be supporting that project because of the outstanding invoices. So I'm just trying to make sure there's no billing that's been done from that point when the notification was given to us until now, because in my mind, there's not been any work performed until this issue was resolved. And that goes to my next question is, in addition to this August invoice, what else shall I expect?
Sure. Well, as you know, the work is essentially completed. I believe they're waiting for CPS to energize the line. I think there's one item that they have to install during that time, but you can expect one more pay application to come, and then there's about 3 closeout paperwork items to do to close out the contract. So
the pay application is actually for the contractor, Force Asset Management. And my question really was more around billing. I need to know how much more money shall I be expecting to be billed for from M&S on this project?
Sure. With all that, I expect to be under 3,000, probably around 2,000.
So I need to add that to this 20,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Alderman Walker had a question. The chair recognizes Ms. Walker.
It would be if you add in the August invoice, it would be roughly 22,000, I believe. But that wasn't my comment. My comment is this goes back to the earliest invoice is April 8th. And I was curious as to why it hasn't been, those invoices have not been brought to the council members before now. Is it because we just received them?
No. So what happens is I have a tally sheet. Well, I had it on my old computer before it died, but I had tally sheets that I would keep track of the different projects, who won the bid, what was the bid worth, what was the engineering cost associated with that. And then as the invoices came in, I could very easily look at that and say, okay, yes, here's the task order. It matches what they said they were going to do here. Next invoice would come in. Same thing. But I got to these two, and I don't, honestly, I do not understand the why these 4 invoices are listed here. Michelleton, can you go through here and tell me on invoice 43814 from April, has that been paid in full for $7,295.20? Or Jason, you may, well, if you're in your car, you wouldn't know.
Mayor, I have the invoices in front of me now. This is Lisa Jaster.
Oh, okay.
So I do have the 5 invoices to include the April 8th invoice for $7,295.20 as unpaid currently as being outstanding.
And I have the same. I have all 5 outstanding based on what was received in the email earlier today.
So when you say 5, you're talking also about the August one for $970 that just came in?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am too. April, May, June, July, and now August.
And then we, from what I hear, we should be expecting another $2,000 for September or August to close out this project. And Jared, can you give me an idea what work is needed from M&S for $2,000 to finish out this project?
Sure. To go into a little more detail, so the contractor is going to finish out with their work. They're going to submit the pay app, and then there'll be a final walkthrough, essentially to check that the little bit that's left has all been done, and then it matches the pay app. And then we'll get the pay app signed and sent out. That's going to include adding in the retainage, and then we'll be sending the contractor final substantial completion, and then notice of final completion. They'll need to get a warranty bond sent to us, and we'll verify that and get you as-builts.
Okay. Is there any other questions from anyone on the council? I see Mayor Pro Tem Rapino has his hand raised. The chair recognizes Mr. Rapino. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm wondering why they haven't followed up once an invoice hasn't been paid. And is it net 30 days that you use for expecting payments?
Yes, sir.
And so did you not follow up when that was passed? And the other question I have is, it is customary in some organizations to charge a late fee, and I'm hoping that we're not going to be hit with something like that also. So those are my 2 questions. And my other observation is we need to fix this problem on our side. And, so that
Yes, sir.
something
This
like
is Jason Jones.
I think, yes.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Go,
Sorry to
go
interrupt
ahead.
you.
Go ahead. No,
Yes, sir, we do. Yes, it's net 30, and we do send out reminder letters normally, and we do follow-up calls. Jared and Lisa can speak to any follow-up discussions that we had with anyone within the city. But yes, on a monthly basis, we send out reminder notices. Again, I don't know if there was something wrong with the mail or the address with respect to the city, but we do send out notices every month, and we do have follow-up calls. I'll let Lisa or Jared speak to any follow-up that they've had internally with the city.
Yes, sir. So we did, Mayor Ball originally had asked us some additional questions. So we created quite a few, or several, I should say, spreadsheets and documentation to try to clarify with regards to the net 30. We didn't ask right away at the 30-day mark, understanding that sometimes there is a slight delay in paying. And since we've had such a good relationship with Sandy Oaks, other than the reminder letters that Mr. Jones was mentioning, we did not do much more than call, remind, and have discussions about the ARs. And at this point in time, although we do have a clause to charge a interest fee, again, because we do appreciate our relationship with Sandy Oaks and the amount of work we do with you, we have not added on any sort of interest fees at this point.
And we're not going to charge any late fees. We're not going to do that.
Yes, I should have said that as well.
And just to tell you, also, if it helps, I don't know if it helps. We're fine with it, with agreeing to pay this out over several months, a few months, whatever that is necessary to try to work that out with it, within reason. I'm not trying to by any means strong arm anybody to pay us today. I did send I'm sorry, I guess maybe the city administrator or somebody had mentioned an email that I had sent to all the council members and the mayor. Basically, it lays out everything that I said earlier, just sort of our position with all of the invoices and that kind of stuff. I apologize. I had figured that y'all had gotten that or you had seen it prior to, but we certainly value the relationship. We want to help you if you're in a bad bind. We certainly aren't trying to, draw a hard line in the sand with, send us a check tomorrow. So if we can work something out where we get the remainder paid out over a few months, if that's helpful, we certainly are willing to do that.
So that doesn't, I appreciate the offer. That does not help us because the auditors are going to come accrue that back into this year anyway. So the challenge is paying it out of this year's monies. As I see, we're looking at $20,677.50 plus the $970 plus an estimated $2,000 to complete the project. That puts these outstanding invoices at $23,637.50. And when I add the $15,000 to that, that puts the engineering cost on this project at $38,637.50. The contractor who did the work is $71,000. Is this typical that we would see this level of, I'm trying to wrap my head around how we gauge going forward if we do another project. 50% of the contractor bid is going to be, we need that much more for the engineering piece of that, or how does that typically work?
There are,
Jared,
Mayor, I'm sorry.
yeah, Lisa or Jared, y'all can speak to that.
Yes, Mayor. So there are a few go-bys that we can understand with regards to the engineering fees, but where there is such a variable, again, we were able to estimate pretty accurately the $15,000 for the engineering fee, but the bidding process fluctuates quite a bit depending on how many changes, what the city all needs from us, because that's a task that we as M&S do, but it's not hard engineering. It's not the design portion. So the bid process can vary in how much it costs. And then the construction admin is very much based on the contractor that the city hires, as well as the length and the complexity of the construction process. So if it's needs to be ADA compliant and there are a lot more regulatory standards that need to be inspected more often, or there's other such ruling bodies where we need to come in more frequently and check to ensure that the contractor is following the plans, or if the contractor chosen by the city or county, whatever municipality that we're acting as construction administration for, depending on that contractor's capabilities, will depend on how much time we're spending on the project. And that's why we usually have to write it in as hourly, is because we cannot predict who the city is going to hire and how capable or how much additional construction admin that contractor will require.
Okay, thank you. So I know, Jared, when I spoke with you yesterday, earlier this week, we talked about the pay application one that we have already paid because it was not fair to the contractor to not be paid for the work they had done. But you indicated that that pay application also included the $1,000 trenching fee that they did not have to trench. And as part of this final billing to close out this project from M&S, is there an expectation that that $1,000 refund or overpayment will be accounted for with this additional $2,000 that you're needing to finish out this project?
I guess I think what you're asking is, will you expect any refund of the $1,000? And I think paying the pay app as it is kind of has locked the city into a much more difficult position. It does not sound like the contractor is wanting to change things. They have financing hoops that they have to jump through to lock everything in.
Can that not be accounted for in pay app 2, which is their final pay app?
It can be. It can be something that we ask them to do. It's all a matter of if you give us direction to fight for that. It is going to be a little more difficult, seeing as we're this far past that, and they've expected that payment.
And so that goes to the really the crux of my question, which was, what are you going to charge me to recoup $1,000, and if it's worth it? Because you've already told me you need about $2,000 to finish the project. But if I ask you to try to get back the $1,000, what's that going to cost me?
It's all a matter of hours to talk to them. So it could be a 10-minute phone call and redoing, or they could dig their heels in and fight for it, and then we'll have to talk and make some decisions on how we want to move forward. So it really shouldn't add up to that much time.
Okay, so for this exercise this evening, I am not going to ask council to approve an additional $2,000 on this project, because nothing's been done on that project to earn that, at this point in time. We have no estimate on what it's going to take to do that. So what we're faced with is the $20,677.50 plus the $970, and that looks to be $21,637.50 is the number we're trying to settle here. And Ms. Shelton does have a question, so I'll let her.
Looking at the 4 invoices that we have, and then the 970, I'm coming up with a different amount. I'm coming up with $20,557.53. I've added them multiple times right now. I know that the email that, let's see, there was an email from Lisa. It had an additional, it said $20,677.50, but when I add up these 4 outstanding invoices and the 970, I'm coming up with a $20,557.53.
Wow.
Looking at the August, looking at the August invoice is what I have in front of me, and it has all of the previous unpaid balances. I am also seeing $20,557.53 currently owed. And again, as you said, Mayor, that does not include any additional fees to close out the project and do the final payout.
Okay, so then we will work with this 20,557 number, and then Jared's going to have to provide us something, an estimate of what it's going to take to finish out this project, and that'll have to be a separate discussion with council at a different time. I do see that Alderman Rapino has his hand raised. I'll recognize him. Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry, I forgot to lower my hand.
No worries. Okay, anyone else on council that would like to ask questions or provide any dialogue to this? Okay, I would like to thank Jason Jones and Lisa Jaster and Jared Mott for joining us on the call and offering some insight into this. The council will address this and come away with some resolution. So thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us, Mayor and council members.
You're welcome. Have a good evening. So based on all of that discussion, I'd like to hear from a council member with a proposed motion, and just know that just because a motion is made, it doesn't have to have a second. I'm just putting that out there that we need to come up with a resolution to clear this up, because this project needs to be completed. And I think we all understand now where the breakdown was. And from my perspective, that will not happen again. I just won't accept any billing from them that is not complete, and at least gives us a fair estimate of what is expected on that, which is what should have been happening all along on this. I see Alderman Tremblay has his hand raised. The chair recognizes Mr. Tremblay. Go ahead. You need to unmute yourself.
There we go. Okay, question for you, Mayor. I'm looking at your proposed budget amendment, and I see you've got a number in there for the municipal billing at $21,000. Is the purpose of that to cover this project?
No, sir. If you look at the city engineer line, that's where that money resides.
Give me a second. What page is that on?
It's under contracted services. It should be page 2, I think. For city engineer.
So, well,
There's
Well,
plenty, there's money there to cover it.
okay, well, yeah, that's what my question was, are we going to be able to cover this? And that was the question. I mean, the work has been done. We're not going to get around not paying for it. So
Exactly.
just the question is, are we going to be able to absorb this into the budget?
Yes, based on the proposed budget that I have provided each of you, the answer is yes.
Okay, as long as we continue to maintain a balanced budget,
Exactly.
I have no issue with it.
Okay. Okay, you can lower your hand now. Okay, Alderman Fillinger, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I move that we pay the outstanding balance of $20,557.53 based on it's covered in our budget amendment ordinance.
Okay, so we have a motion from Alderman Fillinger to pay the outstanding invoices that total $20,557.53. I see Alderman Rapino has his hand raised. Go ahead, sir. You're on mute.
Yeah, it is.
Now we hear you.
I'll second that motion. But we need to, in the future, figure out a fail safe so this doesn't occur again.
Exactly.
But anyhow, I second the motion.
Okay, so we have a second by Alderman Rapino. We will do a audible and a hand raise as well on this one. So we'll start with all in favor, say aye, and raise your hand.
Aye.
Hey,
Aye.
Who are we missing? There we
Alderman
are.
Yelton. Okay.
Okay, so all are in favor, so that motion carries. Okay, Ms. Shelton, in the morning, would you pay those specific invoices that you have in your possession? If you don't have the August, we'll get it done when we receive it, if you don't have it. But for the others that are still outstanding, go ahead and get those paid.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's move on. Let's move back up to item 6A. Get back on track here. Discuss on our possible action on ordinance 2020-168, ordering a general election to include the extension of early voting dates and repealing ordinance 2020-163. This ordinance was approved, I think, at our last meeting, Catherine. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And since then, of course, with COVID-19, things change on an hourly basis almost. What has come up is they are extending the early voting hours. And so that is the intent of this particular ordinance. It's replacing the one that was approved previously. That's the only change, is just addressing in section 5 the early voting. And it looks as if every council member will need to sign this. So we'll deal with that here in a moment. But this is not one that needs to go out for a second reading or anything. This is strictly an administrative. Would anyone care to make a motion? Alderman, where'd he go?
They changed their mind.
I see Alderman Tremblay had his hand up and his microphone on, and then he took his hand down. Go ahead, Alderman Tremblay.
Yeah, move to approve ordinance number 2020-168, ordering the election.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Tremblay to approve ordinance 2020-168. The chair recognizes Mayor Pro Tem Rapino. Go ahead, sir.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Go ahead and lower your hands, gentlemen. We'll do an audible again. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
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 I see 3. I see 4. Okay.
Michael, did you raise your hand?
There he did.
Okay.
This technology. Okay, so the motion carries on that one. Thank you, everyone. Okay, item 6B, discuss and or possible action on, well, let's not do that one yet. Let's move on to, I mean, we could. Let's do it. Let's do it. Oh, where is that one?
And then,
I am so sorry.
and then this, the ordinance on trash maybe.
Yes. Sorry, I forgot you had multiple items. We're going to go to item 7B, and I apologize. I should have turned the page. I thought he only had one thing to do tonight. 7B is an executive session, but I think we can bypass that. We'll move on to item 7C. Well, let me ask before we move on, is there any alderman who feels that we should have an executive session for this discussion? I'm going to take that as a no.
I think it's protocol dealing with personnel actions and pay. I think we should, do the executive session for pay.
But so let me explain what the intent of this is. Back when Deputy Castillo was hired on, at that time, it was, the action was that his starting salary would be the $40,000, and after a certain period of time, I think it was 90 days, or after he completed his training to the satisfaction of Marshall Lopez, at that time he would be given a rate increase. And so that's where we're at. It's just it was already identified early on. Now it's just a matter of identifying the amount, and I have a recommended amount. So we can, it's all public information anyway. And we're not talking about performance or discipline or any of that. So, I mean, if you feel that we should go into executive session, we could certainly do that.
You have a number, we can move forward then. That's fine.
Okay, so we'll strike item B. We'll move to item C, which is discussing or possible action on a pay adjustment for Deputy Marshall due to the end of his probationary period. And I did have a conversation with Marshall Lopez, and we are in agreement with this amount that we would like to increase his annual salary by $2,000. That would put him at $42,000. We can entertain other amounts, and just so you know, everything that we're going to talk about that's on the agenda is accounted for in the proposed budget that I provided you. I see the chair recognizes Alderman Fillinger. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I move that we approve the increase by $2,000 a year to $42,000.
Starting to worry about house.
Hello?
Where is he? Can't hear him. I mean, I see his mic is, he's not muted.
Are you waiting for me? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
You're muted, Mickey.
I hear Tom.
I hear.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Oh, okay. I was going to second that motion.
Okay.
Okay, I apologize. I was on mute too. So we have a motion by Alderman Fillinger and a second by Alderman Rapino to increase the annual rate of pay for Deputy Castillo by $2,000 for $42,000 annual in compensation. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, that motion carries. And Ms. Shelton, that would be effective with his next, when does your pay week start?
It started on Monday, so it'll be next month. Well,
Next Monday?
yeah. No,
Okay. Well, you can do a
Yeah.
split.
that's true. Okay.
Yeah. So I think for all practical purposes, it's effective today. We'll approve it for today, and then they'll just have to adjust his pay on the hours for, I mean, he's not on duty today anyway. He'll be in tomorrow. So starting tomorrow.
Tomorrow's is Monday.
Tomorrow is his Monday. Okay. Are we through with you now, Marshall Lopez?
I think he's wanting to stick around.
Oh, yes. Okay. So we do have an item that he was instrumental in working on with us. So let's go to item 6C, discuss and or possible action on ordinance number 2020-170, establishing regulations for prohibiting litter, providing for abatement, and amending ordinance number 2019-148. So council members, you should have this information, and we ended up with that's the wrong one. You should have a clean copy and a red line version. And the overall intent on this particular ordinance is to address the overgrown lots that are around the city that are creating fire hazards. They're also creating, rodents and snakes and all kinds of stuff, and just generally being unsightly out here. And now that we are in a burn ban and we're in the really dry, hot season, this potentially could be a problem. And so the intent is to amend the ordinance to address that specifically. I will ask Ms. Ortiz, in section 2 under definitions, I was thinking it might be beneficial to have a definition for the word brush, because that may mean different things to different people. And as I was reading through here, I thought, well, I wonder what the definition is. I did not see one. So that would be one thing that I would like to have considered for this discussion. But other than that, I'll open it up to the other aldermen to see who would like to speak on this particular item. I don't see any hands going up. Okay, so I made some other notes. Y'all will learn. Speak up. On section 4, and this is kind of where it came about, where it says high grass, weeds, or brush. And we have a number of lots that have fallen trees on them. So, some very significant limbs. Those are definitely a fire hazard, probably more so than the tall grass. But, dead wood is a fire hazard. So addressing down trees and limbs. And other than that, that was really the 2 items I had on this particular ordinance. Anybody? The chair recognizes Alderman Trimley.
Okay, all right, Mayor, so are you adding a clause in here to address fallen trees? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think if we could add a definition for brush, And in my mind, that includes, when I think of brush, I think of tree trimmings and leaves and grass clippings, you know, natural items that are grass or wood in nature is how I interpret it. But I think for this ordinance, it might be beneficial to actually line out a true definition of how we want to utilize the word brush. And then that would be taken care of throughout the rest of the ordinance.
So under the definitions, we just need to define brush to include tree trimmings, fallen trees.
Whatever definition we think is appropriate here, yes. And Ms. Ortiz, do you have any insight into a definition that may exist that addresses that?
That's what I was looking for as y'all were speaking. I don't see one coming up in the health and safety code. And just kind of doing a quick search on how other ordinances use it, and they don't, and some I've pulled up haven't defined it, other than just leaves and tree trimmings and clippings, but no formal definition. So as y'all are discussing, I'm looking for one.
Well, and Marshall Lopez he just threw out a one word, vegetation. I mean, really, that's what it is. It's
well, ma'am, under garbage, it does specify tree trimmings, hedge trimmings, leaves. So I mean, decaying waste could be fallen tree that is rotting. So I mean, I think it's probably covered under garbage. If you
Maybe remove the word brush.
well, and that's fine, except when you get over here to section 4, we're not talking about garbage. We're talking about brush.
all right.
I mean, either a definition to define brush as we want it to be defined, or to expand on section 4 to identify specifically down trees, limbs, you know,
Well,
natural vegetation.
probably just a definition of brush in the definition section, and brush as defined means accumulation of leaves, tree branches, fallen trees, and just add it as a
Definition.
we're already up to QR. It would be S, a defined brush.
Well, we would want to put it alphabetically. So it would become C. All of the definitions are alphabetical.
Right, so I'm saying it would be S.
Alphabetical by word, brush, B.
Brush.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Comes after A.
The words are off. Okay.
Okay. So if you will state again what you defined for brush, I'll make a note of that on here.
Brush means accumulation of leaves, grass, branches, or fallen trees.
Okay. Ms. Ortiz, would that work?
Yes, I think that would work unless there's any other type of lawn trimming, because garbage does have, the definition of garbage does contain probably other words we can include also, such as lawn trimmings, tree trimmings, hedge trimmings, weeds, possibly too.
Well, since we have a definition already of garbage, which includes everything that we're talking about, can't we just change section 4 to read high grass, weeds, or garbage?
Well, then garbage also includes other things that are not,
right,
that are probably outside of what brush would be.
And remember, I think in the enforcement action, it's going to refer back to the specific section. And somebody may have a fallen tree and some tall grass, and they're being told it's called garbage, and it's not garbage.
So we
that
would,
was,
out of the garbage definition, then we would just remove those and put them under brush.
that's what I'm thinking. The lawn trimmings, tree trimmings, hedge trimmings, leaves, grass. weeds.
Can I interrupt,
Yes,
please?
sir. Yes, sir.
If you read the definition of rubbish, included in rubbish is
Same thing.
waste wood, wood products, tree trimmings, grass cuttings, dead plants, weeds, leaves, dead tree, or branches thereof. Chip shaving, sawdust, printed matter. What we're talking about is brush is already defined as rubbish.
I agree.
Okay, so then that makes it a little easier if we just edit the title, the heading for section 4, remove brush and replace it with rubbish, correct?
I'm
Makes better sense.
the high grass, weeds, or brush. Yeah, I would. Other than high grass, everything else is included in rubbish. So you might want to, section 4 is high grass, weeds, or rubbish.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, high grass, weeds, or rubbish. Same thing under section 4, item B for the abatement.
Maybe anywhere that says brush, because there's like the next page on number 2, it still says brush in excess of 48 inches. So anywhere that says brush, replace it with rubbish.
Cassandra, could that be a motion that would be acceptable?
Well, before you do that, the health and safety codes uses the term brush, but although there's no definition for it. So going on with Alderman Fillinger using the term rubbish, what council can do is have a definition for brush, but say instead of just say brush means the same thing as rubbish. Simplifying that, and then you don't have to go changing brush throughout the ordinance.
So we're back to the definition then.
Yes, similar to what is done in letter L for refuse. It means the same as garbage. Council would do that. Brush means the same as rubbish.
Oh, got it. Okay. Well, that's an easy fix right there. Okay, I see that Alderman Tremblay, do you have additional comments? No, hands went down. Okay. Okay. Any other comments? And Cassandra, I see your hand is up. Did you have additional comments?
Yeah, just one more. There's a definition for graffiti, but graffiti is not addressed throughout the ordinance. It was in a draft I was working on, but based on our prior discussions where it was really just to address the weeds, I had removed any additional things that wasn't regarding the weeds, so that the graffiti definition needs to be removed.
And so should we leave it in there or not?
No, we'll remove graffiti because the ordinance doesn't address graffiti unless that's something that the council does want to address as a nuisance and abating graffiti.
Marshall Lopez, graffiti is, how is that defined in law enforcement? Is that property damage? I mean, it's trying to figure out if we need to include it in this particular one or if it's addressed through some other means.
This is regarded as property damage.
Okay. Okay, so I think where we're at is A definition for rubbish, I'm sorry, a definition for brush to be the same as rubbish, and then remove section D that references graffiti. I see Alderman Fillinger has his hand raised. Go ahead, sir.
No, I was just going to say let's strike graffiti and address that in a different ordinance if necessary, and add the definition of brush as rubbish.
Is that a motion, sir?
That is a motion, ma'am.
Could you restate it in a motion, please?
Okay, I move that we add the definition of brush to be the same as rubbish, and we strike the section D definition of graffiti.
Okay. And I see Alderman Rapino has his hand raised. Go ahead, sir.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Alderman Fillinger to amend this amended ordinance to add a definition for the word brush to be the same as rubbish, and to strike item D that references graffiti. I see two hands up. Could you lower your hands first before we take a vote on this, or do you have comments? Hands are down. Okay. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. That motion carries. Now we have one more bit of business related to this particular one. Would this one fall under the second reading? My thought is this is really more of an enforcement issue related to health and safety, and therefore would not be part of the second reading requirement, but I will defer that to Ms. Ortiz.
Yeah, that's correct. This is a health and safety ordinance, and so it does not require the second reading.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so that motion carries. And then I know, is everyone agreeable that we can take a 15-minute break?
Ma'am, you didn't, you only did the motion to change, to amend the ordinance. They haven't passed the ordinance.
Sorry. Gosh, you're keeping me straight. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the amended ordinance. Now we need a motion to approve the ordinance. So I see Alderman Fillinger has his hands up.
Yes, I move that we approve ordinance number 2020-170 as amended.
Okay, and I see Alderman Yelton has his hand up. Go ahead, sir.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a second by, a motion by Alderman Fillinger and a second by Alderman Yelton. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, that motion carries. Thank you all. And so what I'd like to do is let's take a 15-minute break and we'll come back and we'll finish this out. The time is 8:10 p.m. and we are going into recess, and we will see everybody back here in 15 minutes. Thank you. Catherine? Okay, it is 8:26 p.m. and we are rejoining. We're going to commence the meeting again. And I don't know who's playing music. Alderman Rapino, can you mute your phone, please? Let's finish out item 8, which is animal control, real quick. These should be fairly easy to work through quickly. Item 8B, discuss and/or possible action on recommendation by ACAC of nomination of Alderman Fillinger to Animal Control Advisory Committee. And I will let Alderman Walker run with this one. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, the Animal Control Advisory Committee is recommending to the City Council the nomination of Alderman Fillinger as an additional council member to attend the Animal Control Advisory Committee meetings. We're just wondering if there is any discussion. Mr. Tremblay?
Yes, Alderman Tremblay. Go ahead, sir. You're on mute.
I'll second that motion.
Did you make a motion, Ms. Walker?
I actually didn't. I was opening it for conversation. If there is no conversation, I will make a motion.
Okay, so let's start with a motion then.
All right, I make a motion that we accept Mr. Fillinger. I guess we should ask Mr. Fillinger if he would accept that position if he is nominated. I mean, if he is accepted by council.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, then I make a motion that we add Mr. Alderman Fillinger to the Animal Control Advisory Committee.
Okay, and Alderman Tremblay, go ahead.
And seconded.
Okay, so we have a motion by Alderman Walker, a second by Alderman Tremblay to accept the nomination of Alderman Fillinger to the Animal Control Advisory Committee. All in favor say aye.
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 Except for Fillinger, you can't. Okay, so that motion carries. Okay, thank you. Item 8C, discuss and/or possible action on nominating an alderman to the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee. Again, Alderman Walker.
All right, we had discussed last time that I had resigned from the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee, and we needed a nomination for an alderman to the Animal Control or the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee. So I guess we need, if there's anybody who's willing to volunteer or a nomination from someone.
And this is for the Shelter Committee, which is related to the Shelter Board, which is the state requirement that we have in place. That is correct?
Right, this is the shelter board. The
Okay.
shelter, we referred to it in our ordinance as the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee. But yes, that's what it is.
May I make a nomination?
I don't see why not, since I'm not.
Cassandra, is that acceptable?
Yes, you can make a nomination.
Okay, so I would first, I'd like to nominate Alderman Fillinger, but I would like to ask him if he would be willing to accept that nomination.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there we go. Now what we need is a motion.
I make a motion that we accept Alderman, or nominating Alderman Fillinger to the Animal Shelter Advisory Committee.
Okay, so we have a motion. I see Alderman Rapino has his hand raised. Go ahead, sir.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a second by Alderman Rapino. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, that motion carries. I hope you weren't planning to retire anytime soon, Alderman Fillinger. Okay, let's move on to the big item, item 6B. So Ms. Shelton is going to share on the screen the documents as we go through them. We are going to start with Exhibit A, if you have your handout package with you. And we'll just kind of go down the line here. And I see the screen is starting to share. Okay. So from an income standpoint, I have an expectation that we will have a shortfall this year of approximately $130,361. And with that in mind, we now need to address the income side of that so that we are once again balanced. And what I've done here is these are the major categories, and I've lined out each one of them to show where the puts and takes are. And so some of it is just like city council and mayor expense. I think we're basically, just so everybody knows, spending has come to a halt. We've been very, very, very mindful of the monies that have been spent. Overtime is, the mandate that I've given is there is no overtime. However, just because of law enforcement, because of animal control, it's going to happen. But everyone has worked very hard. They're taking comp time, and that creates its own issue where we sometimes don't have people here, but that's just the world we live in right now. So when you go down here, some of the big items that you'll see is adding $6,000 to municipal building, animal control. Animal control and the marshal department fall under the city marshal. So animal control is an increase of $38,900. That is due to, if you remember from our original budget, animal control and public works were combined. When we started out, it was just Chris and it was public works. And then we hired Mark, and he was public works and Chris focused more on animal control. Now Mark is gone and Chris is back to supporting both. But the budget dollars resided with the public works line item. The marshal department is an increase. That has to do with some overtime that's already occurred this year, some additional expenses we had not anticipated. I will tell you that one thing about this year's budget, this is the first year that we have had a number of items on here that we've not had in the past. So it was our best guess from the start of this budget cycle for this fiscal year ending 2020 to just come up with what we thought was the best numbers at that time. So now we're tweaking everything to adjust it to where it needs to be. The court is one of those areas where the rate has gone up. Operations has gone up. Utilities for electricity has gone up. But if you remember, we also approved some additional lighting out here. That's some of it. The water was pretty much spot on. It's going up just a little bit, not too terribly much. Other types of expenses. Payroll expenses went up. That's all related to overtime. And then you get down here to public works, you can see a decrease of $65,200. That is to allow for the vacancy that we have in place. We have not backfilled that position, and we will not be seeking a position to fill that position until October, the next fiscal year. But it also includes removal of some of Chris's time. And what he and I have come up with is that he splits his time on average 70% to animal control and 30% to public works. So we made the adjustment in the budget for that. And then the last item there is removing the reserve funding, and that is a combination of the projects that we've done. The Lost Hills Low Water Crossing was one that had a significant amount that was not utilized, that was budgeted for. And then there was an item for this year where if all had gone well, this money, there was 127,000 and some change that was in the reserve line, and that would have doubled the amount that we have for investment for our reserve funding investment purposes. Remember last year in June of 2019, council approved moving that, I think it was 127,500, if I'm not mistaken, that we moved into the text pool account. And so the reality this year is we're not going to be able to do that. That reserve funding was there to address some unknown items. There's things we didn't know. Again, this is the first year that we've done a number of things, and it was a padding basically, but unfortunately we're going to have to forego that this year. So that is the high level overview, and you can see that the numbers match. The total expense of adjusting 130,361 matches the adjustment to the income. One of the reasons that the income level is down has to do with our tax collections. When we were working through our worksheet for the appraisal district in setting our rates for next year, our collection rate has dropped. It's to be expected. I mean, who could have anticipated a pandemic? I certainly couldn't, but you know, a lot of people are being affected by this. So some of that money that will be uncollectible this year, in future years, hopefully next year, but certainly that obligation does not go away. It will come back into the city at some point. Ms. Shelton, let's move on to the worksheet. Yes, okay, so this is gonna go line item by line item to show where the monies are being adjusted from. So the very first item, we're gonna add a line item for abatement for $4,900, and that is to address the cost of the demolition of the property that is on Young Oak. That work has been completed. There is a contract for sale for that property. The buyer and seller are both aware, and the title company is aware, and the expectation is that money is coming to us at closing. The ad valorem taxes, you can see it's not off by much, but I do expect a shortfall of about $14,000. Then we would add a new line item to address animal control donations and fees. We do have some monies that have come in. Actually, it's not on there, Catherine. Proposed amendment. I didn't put the donations on there. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. The CARES Fund. $7,500 has been approved by the county commissioners for monies for our city, and this is part of the federal government program. You've probably been hearing in the news about cities receiving lots of money due to the pandemic. There was a great deal of money that came into Bexar County. However, we are blessed in some ways with being a small community that the financial impact that this fund money would address was relatively insignificant. And the county commissioners have approved this amount of money for us. I have with me that I will be presenting to the county manager for reimbursement of some expenses, roughly about half of that amount, and that is to go offset some of the things that we had to spend money on that were not budgeted related to COVID-19, such as the plexiglass, the sanitizers, the doorbell, the outside collection drop box, the things that we had to do and put in place, pay the hazard pay to our employees, those type things, those are reimbursable. And so we submitted, requested the $7,500 and it was approved. Court fines and fees, COVID-19 we probably would have exceeded this budget, but because we've had to postpone some court dates, and I anticipate we'll be a little short in that area. I added $3,000 for Fiesta medals because I think that was the original anticipated amount that we expected to receive this year if we sold all of the medals. So it's really more of a placeholder here on what the expectation would have been. Franchise fees, I'm expecting those to be a little short as well. I could be surprised. We still have some revenues that are coming in, ad valorem taxes, sales tax, franchise fees. So some of that could be, but I'm trying to be very conservative on this side of it just because we are approaching the end of the year. We had a line item previously on the approved budget called donations. We're renaming that to park donations. I did not put a dollar figure in there, but we do have money that has been received. That's for animal control and park as well. The police and crime fund, we're removing that line, and we are also removing the street and drainage fund. If you recall back when we had the election back in November related to VIA, those items were established as a, what do we do with the money? If we don't give VIA the money, what are we going to do with it? And you'll see down in the expense side that this just offsets what's down in the reserve funding. That's why it says wash. Sales tax, I think we're going to come in pretty strong. I anticipate we will exceed this number, so I'm going to leave it as it is. And then the last one has to do with tax pool. It was named interest from investments, but I thought it might be helpful to keep that as the same name as where the investment is. And Catherine, can we move? Okay, so that's our, wait, go back up just a little bit. So there's our total income. And we originally, our budget was $1,138,461. With these adjustments in income, we're dropping it to the $1,008,100. Okay, go down, Catherine, please. Okay, so lots of puts and takes down here. What I did is we had just one line item that said building maintenance. Well, we have in reality 2 buildings. We actually have more than that, but when we talk about municipal buildings, we have 2. So I wanted to add line items to differentiate between those 2. We are still going back through QuickBooks and identifying what expenses belong in which bucket. So that one will tweak it a little bit, but just adding the line items, and as long as at the overall total municipal building budget line, we don't exceed that, we'll be fine. And the net increase there is, looks like $6,000. Okay, Catherine, go down a little bit. We're going to increase the audit services because we budgeted $8,500, but if you recall, we actually had 2 audits completed, and we have paid invoices for $15,000 for that. City administrator, that's just a closeout on the actuals, so that's the end number there. The engineering services, we talked about that earlier. I put that money on that line item as opposed to the actual project because we didn't budget the project to include that. But we can certainly discuss that a little bit more later. Another item that we're adding is outside contract services for $6,500. In that line item is the $4,900 that was paid to H-Tex for demolishing the Young Oak property. And the remaining amount is related to, it's not all of it, I'm leaving some in there in case we need it, but it's related to the building inspection, building inspector and the work that he has done and would still be available to do for us. Continue down, Catherine. Let's see, we're renaming some things, we're adding some things. So the Marshall Department, which used to be called City Marshal, I recommend that we refer to it as Marshall Department. And instead of Animal Control Officer, we name that to Animal Control for the department itself. And then adding 3 line items under Animal Control. One is fuel for the vehicle, one is salaries, and the other is vehicle maintenance. We already had the line items for containment and facilities, equipment, supplies, and veterinary. And remember, I mentioned that I was moving money from public works salary to move up into the animal control up here. So we're adding $26,400 up there. Under Marshall's Department, contract labor, that's just a minor thing. If we ever needed somebody again, we would have that line item available to us. But this was basically, we hired an off-duty Bexar County deputy to come in for a meeting at one point during this fiscal year. But I think it's helpful to have that line item there just in case we need it again in the future. The Marshals Department equipment, there have been, as you can imagine, there's things we didn't know that we needed, mostly related to in-vehicle equipment, body cameras, things that weren't in the original budget. And so for equipment, I think if we add $11,000 to that line, we should end the year very easily on that. The salaries, again, I mentioned that we've had some overtime, and I think that we can live with that number through the end of this fiscal year. And then taking out some money for supplies and vehicle maintenance. That's kind of a no-brainer. Okay, go down, please. And then for the court clerk, need to increase that a little bit. If you remember, we extended her hours up not to exceed 32 hours. And we are actually doing double dockets, the double court dates, starting in August, in order to try to clear some of the backlog. So I needed a little extra money to compensate for the additional hours that she'll be working through the end of this fiscal year. We have a new item to add called Court Collections. This is the company that if there are outstanding payments, they work to collect that on our behalf. And it's not a big amount. So for the end of this fiscal year, we should be fine, but we certainly want to budget for that for next year. And then the next two are just renaming them court supplies, and we can decrease that by about $3,000. It used to be called municipal court other, and then the equipment used to be called court supplies. I know that's confusing, but when I looked at the items that were in QuickBooks that were mapping to those, that's how it worked out. So, and then did have a conversation with the municipal judge and the prosecutor with their expected billable hours through the end of the year. And they provided those, so we should be able to decrease the amounts we have for them. And then the other big one is adding $25,000 for the OCA fees. And OCA is the Office of Court Administration. That's the state agency. So all of the monies that we collect from fines, people come to court, they pay their tickets, whatever the assessments are, that all goes to the state. Catherine, help me out, because I know you work very closely with that, but I think it all goes to the state and they give us money back, or we have to split it in some fashion.
I don't,
so,
go ahead.
So, and I know that Alderman Fillinger in the past has talked about this, where just, you know, if traffic tickets really are not profitable to the city because the bulk of the fees go to the state. So we get our little pittance from that. And that's what you're seeing here is a lot of that. Ordinance violations, more of that money resides in the city and the fees are less to the state. So that was one of those kind of unknowns, and it's really difficult to wrap our arms around what that number needs to be. But based on what I have seen, what our run rate has been, and the activity that I've seen, I think we should be able to finish out at 25,000, hopefully under that. Go ahead and move on down, please. The others here, IT services is, remember we entered into a contract, we terminated a contract with one supplier and we entered into a contract with a new one. That's going to increase our rate to get us through the end of the year. Newspaper publishing, I needed to add more money in there. One of the things that was unknown at the time was when we had to do all of the notifications in the San Antonio Express News for the road bond, that cost us about $6,900 to do that. So that's why we need the additional funding there. Operating supplies is just some day-to-day stuff, but based on what we've seen so far, we need to add $2,500 to that line. Printing and copying, we can reduce that. I've left a little cushion in there because we do have some things that we may need to take care of before the end of the year. Telephone telecommunications has gone up, and that is related a lot to the Marshal's Department, but also because we've had additional headcount here. We have some hot spots. I think it's, Catherine, the in-vehicle communication, I think that is through Verizon. Is that correct? That's the Wi-Fi that they use for communicating?
Yes.
Yes. So that was, if you remember when we did the budget, we didn't have 2 officers. So things did increase a little bit in support of that. Electricity, we talked about that. The next one, the other types of expenses are related to employee benefits and healthcare, and then our insurance and liability. That has to do with some items that we've purchased. One of them was the building that we purchased. We bought a tractor, and those rates are just going to increase. However, on the workers' comp side, it looks like we can do a little bit less. Could you move down a little bit, please?
Did you want to address the G&A vehicle and explain it?
The G&A vehicle is it's the Tahoe that we got from Bear County Purchasing as a surplus vehicle. So there was no cost to us other than I think we had to get an inspection and some decals on it. But that's the vehicle that is to be used to offset the mileage reimbursements for if anybody needed to travel on city business. Okay, could you move down, please? Okay, yes, keep going. Okay, so now let's move to Public Works. So the grounds projects, the Parks Committee has had some ambitious goals this year, and unfortunately, the majority of what they work on is it's a time constraint, and the reality is we're not going to be able to even initiate, much less complete, any project of any significance this year related to the park. So I'm leaving some money in there. We still have a lot of room to play with there, but I'm pulling out $16,000 from that budget, that line budget. The public works salaries, again, that's decreasing because of the vacancy and shifting some of that to animal control. And just adding a little bit of a buffer for tools and equipment that Public Works may need. We never know what they're going to encounter that they need to do a job. Street barricades and guardrails, we really haven't spent much on there. I think we can get by with that 500 through the end of the year. Street maintenance, again, that's a time constraint issue. So it's been mostly patching, and they're buying the materials by the pallet. And as that depletes, they buy another pallet. And again, for the end of the year, we just don't have the time to do the bidding, identify, and plus we have the bond that's coming up anyway. So we're pulling some money out of their budget. And for street signs, I went ahead and added $1,500 just because signs disappear, and just in case we need to place an order, they're relatively quick to get if we need them. Okay, go on down. Now we get into the reserve funding line items. So the building acquisition and placement was for the new building that's up on the municipal complex. Commercial development and economic survey, I never could get Lou to get off the dime on those, and nothing developed. So again, time constraints, we're not going to be able to utilize those funds. The Lost Hills Low Water Crossing came in significantly under budget. The master plan, it looks like it's under budget. It is not under budget. That $5,000 was actually paid for in the prior fiscal year, so they're now whole. Is that correct? You've paid the final invoice. Is that correct, Catherine?
Yes.
Okay. So that line item is done. Municipal complex infrastructure. This is a new line item. This is related to the part of what we talked about earlier with M&S Engineering. This is for the water and electric, bringing that into that property. This is not, none of this in here relates to animal control at all. This is strictly for the infrastructure for water and electric to that property. And again, the police and crime fund and the street and drainage fund, those are the wash from the income side. And so if you take a look at all of that, we are now, excuse me, back to balanced with total expense of $1,008,100, which matches the income. And Ms. Catherine, would you move to the next item, the next file? There we go. So this is taking all of that and comparing this to the actuals that have been spent so far. And one thing I did want to mention that I failed to mention in the big one, carryover funds from the prior year. We budgeted like $358,000, I think it was. Go back up to the very top. Yes, $390,000. Once the audits were completed, they dropped that number, adjusted that number because they pulled monies out of this year back into previous year, which is where they belonged when they were incurred. So that was a big hit right there, in addition to some of the other items. Okay, go back to the other file. So now you're looking at that proposed budget, all the line items that we just went through, comparing it to what the most recent, and I swear it was Friday's numbers, of what has actually been spent. And in my view, not Catherine's production view, but my view, because I take her file and I rename it and I work with it on the side, and I've reclassified some expenses. So the stuff we talked about with Chris, some of that has been accounted for. The fuel for the vehicles between Public Works and Animal Control. Catherine does a great job when she does entries, identifying when a fuel purchase is made, who made it and for what purpose. So I was able to grab like the fuel expenses that have already been done and reclassify those. So what you see in this view here is where we are through August 7th, which was last Friday, on the actual amounts that have been spent. And Catherine and I have worked really hard to clear any open invoices that were sitting out there to make sure that they were paid for and everything was current. And so our income, it looks like we still have about $85,000, $86,000 left to come in. You can see those different line items where it is. Sales tax and franchise fee are the big hitters there. But everybody has a little bit in there. We're expecting to get that $4,900 from the abatement on the Young Oak property. Can you go down a little bit, Catherine? Okay. And then here on the other items, mostly what the budget adjustments were for those various line items was just a resetting to help us close out the year. So you won't see anything really significant other than, keep going down a little bit till we get, okay, so right here under audit services. So you see right there under engineering, based on our conversation tonight, we're under budget by $36,000. So we can absorb that fee and get that off the books. And Ms. Ortiz, I'm sorry, but we're cutting into your pay this year, but you've been a great asset. We don't want you to go anywhere. Then we go into the animal control, and you can see that we have a little bit of funding still left in there. The one item that I did not want to cut out was veterinary services, because that, unfortunately, that is where our biggest expense item is, and it continues. We never know hour to hour what's going to happen with an animal that we need to go pick up. So I could not short that category. It's a big ugly number. I understand that. With our new facility going online, that number will be cut drastically going forward. If we go down to the Marshall, you can kind of see where the numbers are falling there. Remember, this is what we're looking at is August and September. Those are the 2 months that we're still, because remember, I did this based on August 7th. So for all practical purposes, we have 2 full months that we need to work through here. And so you'll see that there are, we still have enough funding in there to cover the Marshal's Department. Can you go down, please? In the court, we have the court collections. You can kind of see where the actuals are and where I pulled some of those other numbers from. Court supplies. Everybody still has a little bit of a cushion to work with. Each department still has a cushion to work with throughout the remainder of this year. Okay, continue down. Operations, IT services, and telephone and telecom, those are the two big hitters there. Everything else is just leveled out for finishing out the year. Utilities, we should be right on track there. The benefits, keep going down, Catherine, please. Okay, and then under Public Works, you can see where we've, and remember, Chris, some of Chris's time, 30% of his time is going to be flowing to the Public Works salaries throughout the end of the year. And we still have enough in street maintenance. I think, Catherine, that equates to about another pallet if we needed it of materials for road repairs.
Yeah, I think a pallet is like almost 700.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead and scroll down. And then we get into the reserve funding piece. And so the building and acquisition is complete. Lost Hills Low Water Crossing is complete. Master plan is complete. And we will have a final pay application, hopefully, in the coming week to finish out the municipal complex. And so that is my proposal for amending the budget for the end of the year. So let's go back to, yes. So are there any questions or concerns from anyone on the council?
Are they awake?
I see Alderman Rapino has raised his hand. Go ahead, sir.
Great job.
I couldn't understand
That's
you.
a great job.
Oh, thank you. I see Ms. Ortiz has her hand up. Go ahead, ma'am.
Just because there are a lot of additions and additional expenditures that weren't included in the original budget, the council should declare due to a grave public necessity, and that is being COVID-19. So I have proposed language for a motion, and then the ordinance would include a recital that would contain the same language that would specify or have a finding that this is due to a grave public necessity caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. So I was going to send it to the chat for somebody to make a motion. It's once the discussion is complete by council.
Okay, so I think what I heard you say is because there's such a change that there's special language that needs to be recited as part of the motion. Is that correct?
Yes, with the discussion, and you had talked a lot about COVID-19 and all the cuts, and a lot of municipalities and local governments are having to do budget cuts due to COVID. Just cite whatever alderman makes the motion to cite the grave public necessity, and so that's why I was going to send the language in the chat for
whoever wants to do that. Okay.
So I will send that through, and then after y'all's discussion, whenever y'all are ready to make a motion, there's suggested language.
Okay, and I will say that just overall, the financial impact to our city, although it looks pretty dire, we're still in very good shape. We still have our reserve funds that are invested. We have enough money to finish out this year. And so compared to some of our counterparts, they're suffering a lot more than we are. So we do have that as a blessing for our community. I do see Alderman Walker has her hand raised. Please go ahead, ma'am.
I would just recommend that it looks great. I would just recommend that we add to the line item for Fiesta Medals, make it Fiesta Medals / Scholarship Fund.
Mm.
So that we remember that we've already voted on that, and that's what those monies were intended for.
And you're talking about in the income side?
Yes.
Okay, so where it says Fiesta Medals / Scholarship, okay? Scholarship Fund, okay. That's a good catch there. Does anyone else have any items they want to address, any changes, any further discussion on that? Okay, so then I think what we need to do first is,
Rapino has, he had it raised. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Cassandra, would we approve this change first before we move to the special language? Where'd she go?
Cassandra?
You can, okay, there, am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are.
You can approve the amended budget as presented. Is that what you're asking? Or are you asking if you approve the worksheet and then approve the ordinance?
Well, Alderman Walker had suggested that we rename one line item.
Oh, yes, then you would approve that amendment, that suggested amendment, and then as a whole approve the amended budget
as presented.
As
amended
and as presented.
Okay, so the first thing we need to do then is we need a motion to approve adjusting the line item for Fiesta Medals. So if someone would like to make that motion. I see Alderman Walker's hand is up. Go ahead, ma'am.
I move that we adjust the line item currently labeled Fiesta Medals to Fiesta Medals / Scholarship Fund.
Okay. And I see, I didn't see whose hand went up first. We'll go with Alderman Rapino. Go ahead, sir.
I will second that motion to change that line item.
Okay. So we have a motion by Alderman Walker and a second by Alderman Rapino to change the line item on the proposed amended budget from Fiesta Medals to read Fiesta Medals / Scholarship Fund. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, that motion carries. Okay, and so if let's see, Alderman Tremblay has his hand up.
No, he doesn't.
He did. Okay, so I think the next order of business is that somebody who would like to make a motion would need to raise their hand so that Ms. Ortiz may send you some special wording. And I see two hands went up. Alderman Rapino was first, so we'll start with him. Go ahead, sir. And you're on mute. There you are. So would you like to make the motion?
Yes, I would like to make the motion to accept the amended budget because of the pandemic, whatever the word that we need to do.
Okay, she's going to send you in the group chat. Is that correct, Ms. Ortiz? You're going to send him something?
Actually, it went to everyone. So I don't know if you can pull it up and see it.
I can share my screen if it helps.
Yeah, that you could do that too.
That would help, yes.
Yeah,
And so, yes, Alderman Rapino, this is what you'll have to.
Oops, I'm sharing the
wrong screen.
Well, let's see. Share screen. This one. Well, it's not letting me share.
I don't believe it will allow you to share the chat.
Oh, I see.
Let me
the chat.
do.
It's in the chat. I see it. Alderman Rapino, can you see the chat?
Yeah, I can see it. I move we amend the budget as presented for municipal purposes and finds 3 amendments are for the grave public necessity to meet and are for, to meet an unusual and unforeseen condition that could not have been included in, I'm having to scroll, included in the original budget through the use of reasonably diligent thought based on the COVID-19 pandemic, and attention will serve the general welfare of the citizens and adopting ordinance number 2020-169.
Thank you for that, Alderman Rufino. Good for you.
I'm glad I'm not a lawyer.
And thank you, Ms. Ortiz, for putting that together. Okay, so we have a motion. And I see that Alderman Walker has her hand raised. Go ahead, ma'am.
I second.
Okay. So Alderman Rapino has made a motion to approve ordinance 2020-169, and a second by Alderman Walker. All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, and that motion carries. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for that. And then the last item is item 6D. So we need to discuss and our possible action on scheduling the date, time, and place for a public hearing on the proposed 2020-2021 fiscal year budget. And my recommendation, I was trying to be a little more aggressive on this one, and initially thought our next meeting would be a prime time to do that. But in hindsight, we actually have some time, and there are some notifications and publications that have to happen. So what we're going to propose is that it be September 10th, which is our first meeting, regular meeting in September, at that time, for doing a public hearing. And I do anticipate presenting the proposed budget at that time. So we can do both at the same time.
May I ask Cassandra if I thought she had mentioned that it has to occur after September 12th.
I think that was the tax rate
Oh, that was the
adoption.
Okay. Okay.
So the hearing on the budget just needs to occur 15 days after the day it was filed, or at least 15 days after the day it was filed. And then we need to give 10 days notice publication.
Okay, gotcha.
And I filed that with you on Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? Monday, Tuesday? I can't remember now.
I don't remember. It's either Tuesday or yesterday. I can't.
Okay, it wasn't yesterday.
I time-stamped it though.
Oh, good. Okay. So the proposed is on file with the city clerk. And so we'll by holding this public hearing on the 10th, we're well within the 15 days of the requirement for that. And plus that gives us time to do the publications in the Wilson County News, make sure that we're in compliance with that aspect of the budget process. So that's my recommendation, that we do a public hearing on September 10th for the next year's fiscal budget. I see Alderman Rapino has his hand raised. Go ahead, sir.
Barring anyone that has more to discuss about the date, and I move that we accept having a budget public meeting on September 10th.
Okay, so we have a motion by Alderman Rapino to schedule a public hearing for the 2020-2021 fiscal year budget public hearing. And I see Alderman Fillinger has his hand raised. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Okay, and we have a second by Alderman Fillinger. If there's no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 I hear and I see. Okay, so that motion carries. Ms. Shelton, you will make a notation for September 10th on that one?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And with that, folks, it is, hold on,
9:17.
hold on. 9:17 p.m. and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.